Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People story. My wife and I had been dreaming of owning a boat for years. We both grew up around the water, and there was nothing more peaceful than being out on the open seas, just the two of us and the endless blue around us. After saving up for what felt like forever, we finally bought our dream boat, a modest but cozy 35-footer that we planned to take out fishing and camping as often as possible. We kept it docked at a local marina that had slips available for rent. The first few weeks of having our new boat were absolute bliss. We took her out almost every weekend, explored little islands, swam in hidden coves, and enjoyed the quiet serenity of evenings anchored under starry skies. It was everything we had hoped for. That is, until the Karens arrived. We were down at the docks one Saturday morning when a shiny SUV pulled up. An annoyed-looking blonde woman stepped out, wrinkling her nose at the slight smell of fish in the air. Trailing behind her were a man and three kids staring sullenly at their phones. The woman, who I'll call Karen, marched up to the dock manager. "I need a slip for our boat, preferably far away from all these smaller boats," she said, casting a dismissive glance over all the modest fishing boats and dinghies docked nearby. The dock manager quickly ushered them over to the vacant slip on the end of the very dock where our boat was. I could see the forced smile on his face as he dealt with this unpleasant woman. Her poor husband and kids looked miserable. Over the next few weekends, we had several run-ins with Karen and her family. They owned a massive yacht, the type that required crew members to operate it, and looked down on all the peasants in their little boats. Karen seemed to take particular offense to our boat, which she called an eyesore every time she saw it. "You need to get rid of that ugly thing. It's bringing down property values," she declared haughtily one day. Her entitled behavior was getting out of hand. She left trash all over the docks, blocked others from getting to their boats, and even called the police once, claiming we were threatening her family, when all we did was politely ask her to not let her kids run wild on the docks. The final straw came one morning when we arrived to find that someone had dumped a can of paint all over our boat. The previously pristine white hull was now smeared with garish orange paint. We immediately suspected Karen, though we had no proof. The dock manager revealed that she had been pressuring him to kick us out for weeks, claiming our dilapidated junk boat didn't belong there. That did it. After talking to the other marina patrons who Karen had been tormenting, we came up with a plan. Many of the patrons wanted to leave the marina because of how Karen ruined the previously peaceful and convivial atmosphere. So we proposed buying the marina from the owner, who was looking to retire soon anyway. He was thrilled at the prospect, especially since it meant kicking the Karens out. After securing financing through the bank, we became the proud new owners of the marina. Our first order of business was to send notices to all tenants that, effective immediately, their slips were going to be reassigned, except for Karen's family. The day we went to inform her that she needed to remove her boat permanently was one of the most satisfying moments ever. She looked at us in disbelief as we asked for her keys back. "You can't do this! We have a contract for our slip!" she sputtered angrily. "Actually, we can," I said calmly. "We own the marina now and have decided to go in a different direction. We'll be happy to refund your slip fees for the remainder of the year." The look on her face was priceless as the reality set in that she was dealing with the new owners. She tried threats, pleas, apologies, anything to get us to change our minds, but we held firm. Within a week, that obnoxious yacht was finally gone, and we began renovations to make the marina an even more charming destination for responsible boat owners. My wife and I eventually moved onto our boat full-time, living the dream that Karen had tried so hard to destroy. The sense of justice felt sweeter than even the salty sea air. We sipped cocktails on the deck as we watched the sunset, finally at peace on our little slice of paradise. The next one is a pro-revenge story. This one is a double government employee event, and what you should know is if you get the attention of a government employee and make them angry, they will make your life a living hell. Sorry, this is a long one. The setup is that I was working for a local county government in the permitting department that handled drainage and floodplain enforcement. I received a complaint from a homeowner, nice guy, who lived next door to a house that was part of an incorporated village. Not a nice guy. The nice guy lived in an unincorporated portion of the county, and hence the call to me as an agent of the county. I drove out to the site to investigate and discovered some interesting facts. The permitting agent for the village allowed the incorporated homeowner to fill his lot, affecting the drainage, which caused the unincorporated lot to flood every time there was anything more than light rain. The nice guy indicated that there was some tension between him and the not a nice guy, and part of the issue was that the nice guy and his partner were a gay couple. This raised a red flag for me, but in trying to be impartial, I took the information and some photos for the file and indicated that I would contact the village to find a resolution. I wrote a letter and then called the village inspector, Jackwagon, to discuss. I was told by Jackwagon that the village could do as it pleased, and that I could do nothing to stop not a nice guy from doing as they pleased, as it was approved by the village. There was then a comment about those types of people, the gay couple, making complaints just to cause trouble. I was now on the case, and it was time to make sure everything done on the incorporated lot was 100% legal. At this point, the game certainly was now on, because if there is one thing that grinds my gears, it is bullying. I went back out and spoke to the nice guy to let them know what I was up to, and also that I was not going to let this slide. I then started investigating the elevations on the two lots and what fill had been placed on the incorporated lot. The not a nice guy came out and started getting belligerent about my presence and ongoing investigation. He incorrectly stated that I did not have jurisdiction over his lot and that he would be calling the police. I patiently listened and then pulled out my two-way radio and requested that the home base dispatch both a village and a county police unit to the location. I then indicated that since there was a regulatory floodplain on his lot, I did in fact have jurisdiction, and that I would be exercising my right to determine the impact of his fill activities upon that floodplain. Both of the police units showed up, and I let them know what was going on. They were both appropriately agitated to have to waste their time, and let not a nice guy know that I was within my authority to proceed with the investigation. A little while later, while I was measuring things, Jackwagon showed up. He started berating me about harassing the village resident and threatening to call my boss and file a complaint and so forth. I invited him to do so, quoting which parts of the code he should indicate I was violating. I was using marking paint to show the limits of the floodplain for the photos for the file. And what do you know? Jackwagon's shoe got painted when he tried to stop me. Obviously, he was even angrier, as was the homeowner, due to very bright orange paint in the grass in his yard. I pointed out I had done the same on the neighboring lots, but they just kept complaining. It was actually marking chalk that comes off pretty easily. Interestingly, I found two really wrong things on Not a Nice Guy's lot. 1, there was fill placed in the floodplain, and 2, a garden shed was built on the fill and partially within the floodplain. Both are a big no-no and are actually against federal law. So the course of action had two parts. 1, make the incorporated homeowner remove the fill and shed from the floodplain, and 2, let the nice guy place fill on their lot outside of the floodplain to counteract the fill remaining on not a nice guy's lot outside of the floodplain. I also told the nice guy it would be a good idea to run a field tile on their side to drain the water that would inevitably pond up between the two lots when it rained. Predictably, Not a Nice Guy and Jackwagon got super angry when I sent the letter out that there were violations that either had to be corrected, remove fill and shed, or apply for a revision of the floodplain with the Army Corps of Engineers. Good luck with that. This then led to a meeting at the county office with Not a Nice Guy, Jackwagon, my supervisor, and myself. Quickly, things went to 11, and there was yelling by Jackwagon about abuse of power, etc. The department head came into the conference room and told them both they were wrong and that they should leave peacefully and comply or face the consequences, fines. The best part was that Not a Nice Guy had to apply for a permit, and guess who was the one to review and approve it? That's right, yours truly. Now, I was following the letter of the law, but you have to know that poor government workers are underpaid and overworked. Strangely, the permit for the nice guy was almost immediately approved, while Not a Nice Guy had to have a very thorough review to ensure it was correct. You could make a case I was abusing my power, but I can assure you that the timing for their review was well within acceptable limits. Also, how could I be held to account that they misfiled 3 times before they finally got it right? Generally, if you behaved like a civil human and came to the office, we would help you get things done properly so the permit would go through the first time. But Not a Nice Guy decided he could do it all on his own, so it took him 3 tries. Had he come to the office, I would have given him the same service as others, But he decided to take the hard route, and therefore I didn't give a single inch when it came to the submission being perfectly correct. Ultimately, the situation was resolved, but it took a lot more effort than it should have. The moral of the story: don't be an entitled homophobic jerk. The next one is a petty revenge story. It only just happened, and I need to vent. I play GTA with a group of friends. They are not people I know in real life, but they're cool. We're all between the ages of 25 and 50, and there are about 10 of us in total. We do group missions, heists, and stuff like that. It's pretty rad. I'm the only girl, mind you. This comes up later. It's relevant to say that we have two rules. Stay on the mic for the missions, and no blocking or muting people in our crew because it's rude or whatever. I don't know. I think it's kinda dumb, to be honest. But, whatever, I like having money in the game, and this is how I do that. I usually tolerate whatever happens in chat, even if it's annoying, but I reached my limit. Recently, we had a new guy join us. He's new to the game, too. Day 1, he's messing up missions. I offered to give him training because I'm being a team player. When it was just us on, I took him around the map and showed him around Los Santos. While showing him the Mount Chiliad mysteries, he used a racial slur that didn't vibe well with me. I asked him gently to knock that off. He called me a snowflake, which is comical if you know who I am and what I'm about. I just told him I find the word jarring, and I would have stopped if the shoe were on the other foot. The weirdo only doubled down that I was a pussy for being offended. I blocked him and was told the next day to unblock him if I wanted to run missions with the crew. Only because I like money and I don't want to be asked to leave the crew, I unblocked him. He said he was sorry for offending me. We all played together most of the night, and he did it again. The rest of the guys asked him to knock it off with that word, but he said it yet again a short time later, and the head of the crew was about to kick him. However, instead, I PM'd everyone but the racist to mute me for about 2 minutes. Once everyone else had muted my mic, I blared my air horn into it. He called me a whore and blocked me. He was promptly told to unblock me or get booted from the crew. Before his official ban today, he was complaining that I might have given him hearing damage. He's threatened to sue me and called our entire crew cucks and simps for taking my side over his, because I'm the only girl. Oh well, to the people taking up for the racist, it's not the look you think it is. People out there can see you defending bad people, and it really is a terrible look to put out there into the universe. You're better than that. Or to paraphrase my favorite show, this is just a Reddit post. You really should relax. The next one is a malicious compliance story. So I'm Mark, and for the past 5 years I've been working at this mid-sized tech company. It's been great, or at least it was, until 6 months ago when we got a new HR manager, Susan. Now, Susan is the kind of person who loves rules a bit too much. She came in with this idea to revolutionize the workplace, but all she did was implement a bunch of unnecessary and strict policies. The one that really got under everyone's skin was her new attendance policy. It stated that if anyone was even a minute late more than 3 times in a month, they'd face immediate suspension without pay. No excuses, no exceptions. This was crazy, considering we're all seasoned professionals, not school kids. But Susan was adamant, and the policy was enforced to the letter. Now, I'm usually very punctual, but life happens, right? Just my luck, I ended up being late 3 times in 1 month. The first was because of a massive traffic jam. The second was due to a power outage that killed my alarm, and the third, well, I overslept. Each time I was barely 5 minutes late, but Susan didn't care. She slapped me with a suspension notice. I was fuming, but then I remembered something important. Our employee handbook. I'd read that thing cover to cover when I first started, and something about the suspension policy stood out to me. I dug up my copy and found the section I was looking for. The policy stated that suspended employees must leave company premises immediately and are not allowed to engage in any work-related activities during their suspension. A plan started to form in my head. You see, at that time, I was in the middle of a critical project for a major client. It was a huge deal for the company, and I was the lead developer. Without me, the project would grind to a halt. So I decided to follow Susan's policy to the letter. The next day, I walked into Susan's office and handed her the suspension notice, along with a printed copy of the employee handbook's suspension policy. I told her, as per the company policy, I will be leaving the premises immediately and will not partake in any work-related activities during my suspension, including the Johnson project. The color drained from her face. "You can't just leave the Johnson project," she exclaimed. But I just shrugged and said, "Company policy, Susan. I'm sure you wouldn't want me to break the rules." I gathered my things and left the office. The fallout was immediate. The project team was in disarray without me, and the client was getting antsy about the missed deadlines. The CEO himself called me 2 days into my suspension, begging me to come back. I explained that I was merely following company policy, as enforced by Susan. Long story short, the CEO had to intervene. My suspension was lifted and I was back at work the next day. The best part? Susan's ridiculous policies were all reviewed and mostly scrapped. She's still with the company, but let's just say her enthusiasm for rulemaking has significantly diminished. So there you have it, folks. Sometimes following the rules a little too closely can be the best form of rebellion, and always, always know your employee handbook. The next one is an entitled people story. So, Saturday night, the missus and I were lying in bed trying to go to sleep when I heard some noise from the back door. The storm door opened and slammed shut. I'm not fully asleep yet, so I put on the pants and shirt I can find and grab my trusty shotgun. We moved to the mountainside, and most of the area is still wooded. Living in such conditions, wild animals are an issue. We have bears, coyotes, raccoons, and bobcats, to name a few. As I'm moving to the back door, I hear a window break in the back garage. I look out and see someone breaking into my garage. I scream for the wife to call the sheriff's office. Around here, cops doesn't work well for break-ins. We are connected with a couple of counties, and it gets confusing for them. We get a quicker response by calling them directly. I'm now in go mode, thinking some meth head is trying to score some tools for quick cash. I got out of the house and noticed this person's truck still running. I did the only thing I could think of and took the key out of the truck, putting it in my pocket. I waited for the deputies to show up. It took them 20 minutes to show up. One was a state police officer, and the other was a local sheriff's deputy who were doing radar 10 miles up the road. My wife and I know them both. With my gun in hand, I told them someone was in the garage and I haven't approached it yet. But here's the key to the perp's truck. They went in with guns drawn and dealt with the situation. The dude was passed out on an old bench seat for an old truck I have by the tool bench. They woke him up and arrested him with little to no issues, other than him screaming profanity at them. They told me that I can press charges and to come in on Monday to file the paperwork. He's not getting out anytime soon since, on top of his breaking in, he's being charged with a DUI. Yesterday, I spent the day traveling, trying to fix the window this broke since no stores that are open on Sunday in my local area. While in my travels, I'm fuming at the fact that I'm having to do this repair on a piece of junk door from the 70s. My wife was telling me to maybe let him go with a warning, but I'm having none of it. So this morning I went to the sheriff's office. The same deputy was there who arrested the perpetrator, so I asked him how the ride with the dude was. This is the version the officer gave me. Officer, why did you break into the garage? Perp, I was trying to get my stuff back, but someone changed the lock. Officer, you know they purchased that place from Kevin 2 years ago, right? Perp, what? That doesn't give them the right to change the lock without telling me. Officer, yeah, they can. You haven't been in that house for like 4 years, and I was the one who got you out of that house because you beat the hell out of your old lady. That's twice I get to arrest you on the same property. Perp, but he shouldn't be entitled to change the locks, though. Where else am I supposed to go? A little backstory on the property. We purchased it from Kevin, who's a school board member, and gave us a decent deal on the property. He had the property as a rental for his nephew for a few years. When his nephew started walking in his dad's footsteps by getting drunk and beating his girlfriend at the time, he evicted him from the property 2 years before we purchased it. When he evicted him, he emptied the contents of the garage as all scrap metal. He found that out Sunday morning when his uncle paid him a visit in jail. Kevin had other renters on the property after. He sold it to us because he didn't want the responsibility of it anymore. He's being charged with trespassing, criminal trespassing, breaking and entering, driving under the influence, and property damage of less than $500. The next one is an entitled parent story. Over the week, my husband and I went on a camping trip before the summer season, with its glorious warm weather, was officially over. We weren't at home and had no cell reception where we were. We left on Thursday, September 7th, and returned on Monday, September 11th. While we were away, my cousin left my niece, still strapped to her car seat, outside my house door on Friday, September 8th, and sent me some text messages. Remember, I had no cell reception where I was camping. I would never have known while I was gone. I saw the missed messages after I returned home. It wasn't a request to ask if I could help her. It was simply a message notifying me that she left my niece in front of my door along with a bag with her stuff for the weekend. She did not ask me beforehand if I could help her babysit. There was no possible way for me to know. Even if I knew, I would have still declined unless it was a medical emergency in the family, and they had no other choice. I live in a rural area where everyone is on 30-acre plots of land, so no one knew my niece was there. I had no clue. The neighbors had no clue. My niece was literally abandoned in front of my door until Saturday noon, when my parents came by to drop off my parcels that were delivered to their house. That's when they saw my niece. My parents called my aunt and had her come pick her up. I can only assume that my parents, my aunt, and my grandmother scolded my cousin for leaving my niece at my door. When I got home, all I saw was the initial text message telling me that my niece was dropped off at my place. Then a string of very rude text messages and voice messages from my cousin calling me irresponsible for leaving my niece outside and endangering her. Because what if the coyotes in my area attacked the helpless infant? I'm just so frustrated. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.